Hi there folks, I'm back today with another video. This time I'm going to be talking about my experiences with UFOs, and I'll leave you back with the beautiful surroundings of this river stream. So I've always, like a lot of kids, had a fascination with UFOs. I remember Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Star Wars, Star Trek gave us ideas, didn't it, really? If you think about it, they given us ideas that this, even if there was no proper evidence, these were the possibilities out there in the universe. And I was one of these believers that believed it was possible, but didn't really, again, like I've mentioned on a few other videos, unless you've had any experiences, you don't quite know. And I didn't for most of my life until about, it was the early 2000s, with an old friend of mine. Well, yeah, old now, but I'd met him maybe like 20-30 years ago, 25 years ago in India. And that was strange in itself, actually, because this fella that I met halfway around the world, it turned out he lived literally 10 minutes walk up the road from where I was, and I'd met him through some Italians, and that was strange in itself. So the whole way that came about was very bizarre. And it was just one of these people. He was just one of these people that I met travelling. We got on really well. We spent a few hours chatting and at a party, and then the next minute we took down our addresses and number. And when I think it was about a year later, I didn't even call him. He didn't even call me. And I was working, and he just walked in, and we remembered each other, and we just went from there. And we ended up hanging out and being really good friends for a long time. And then one night, he came over to my house and we were listening to music and we were chatting, and I was letting him know, introducing him to my brothers and some of my other friends, and we had a really good night that night. Had a few drinks, had some really nice food, and I remember it, we had a lot of laughs that night, and he left quite late, do excuse the train. And hello, how are you? Look how beautiful they are, stunning. Oh, lovely to get this close up. Look at you. Wow. I mean, for me, these are the stars of the show. Look at that, absolutely stunning. What a beautiful animal. There you go. Anyway, back to the story, nicely interrupted there. And yeah, so we'd had a really good night around my house. I lived in a nice house at the time. And we had this sort of like front garden and a porch, and it was really dark outside. I remember it must have been about 1 o'clock, and we were just chatting even more on the step, just saying goodbye, because, you know, we'd really connected as like new friends. He wasn't one of my oldest friends. I'd known when I was a kid, but I sort of met him in my early 20s, and yeah, it turned out to be a really good friend. We had loads of good times. Anyway, back to the story. So we stood outside chatting, and it was really dark in the night, and all of a sudden we just heard this dim noise in the distance, and then it got louder, and then he pointed up, and when I looked up, there was this massive fireball, like an asteroid, really low, and it was just bolting straight towards, I would say, due west, and it was just going really fast. I mean, it couldn't have been, it looked like it was only like a few hundred meters above the atmosphere, but it was going so fast that wherever it hit, it would have, I reckon it was going so fast that it was going right over Wales, Cornwall area, and would have smashed into the ocean. It was going that fast. But that was such a bizarre night. And then about a week later, I went over to his house, and we went through a massive park one night, and we were driving about, and we were lucky because the gates, I remember it was just getting dark. Well, it was actually completely dark. It was just getting to the time where they were shutting the gates to this park, and I'll never forget it. We slowed right down. We was just right near a gate where a lot of people and cars go in and out, and it's pedestrian. And just before we got that gate, I'll never forget it, he slowed down the car because he'd seen something, and so had I. And it was a massive UFO, and it was huge. I mean, we're talking, I think it must have been about between 75 to 100 meters in circumference, and when we looked up there were lights flashing on it. It was hovering, it was still. It was probably about a little bit higher off the ground than like a big tree. So it's like if you looked at a big oak tree, half the height of a big oak tree, and put that on top, and that's how high it was off the ground, because I remember looking at a certain tree and using that as a reference point, and it was just hovering there. And when we looked up, we could see all the gubbins, all the tubings, all the pipings, all the different workings underneath this ship, and the lights were flashing blues and different hues of blues and different colours as well, different types of red, but mainly I remember it being blue and white lights. And it was a phenomenal experience. We were frozen there, and like I say, I think the car wouldn't have started anyway. It was something like Out Close Encounters. It was like we were starring and moving, and then we didn't know we looked at each other and we were just like, what the hell is going on here? Then I reckon there was a thought that just went, both of our minds was like, is this thing gonna like beam us up and like take us out? And for a split second I thought that was what was going to happen to us, but no. Instead, what happened was we kept looking at it, and all of a sudden it just shot off into the air. But I mean, not like a jet fighter or a fast train or anything like that. Forget all of that. This was from just above a tree till literally right on the outside of our atmosphere, within 0.4, 0.3 of a second, if that, probably 0.1, because I do remember seeing it just shooting off, and it left a type of vapour trail, but not a fully one like you see from the planes or the jets. It was just a fizzing of vapour, and it soon disappeared, but you could see where it had gone, where it started and where it ended up, and then it just looked like a shooting star as it went out the atmosphere. And all of that happened within like 0.1, 0.2 of a second, and that experience absolutely blew me away. And then about literally 10 years after that, I was sat by the ocean, by the Atlantic Ocean, with a friend. She had her back towards the ocean, I was looking towards the ocean, and it was late at night, and it was an area that had been renowned for UFO sightings. But what happened was, again, it was full of stars, but really dark, and not much light pollution on where I was. There wasn't many people living there. And all of a sudden, all I can describe it as is a blue, shining, glimmering sapphire blue, deep blue, came shooting out from the sky and landed right in front of me on the ocean, because we were only a few hundred meters away, and it landed maybe like half a mile out of sea, and just crashed into the ocean. But it was like it had some sort of force field around it, because as it crashed in, there was no resistance, and there was no major splash or anything. It just went into the water like a knife through like hot butter. It just, through a hot knife through butter, it just went straight through, and there was no resistance. And I just remember thinking to myself, what a beautiful colour, what a beautiful ship that was. That was something special. The first one was amazing, the first sighting I had, but this second one, even though it was brief, the colours of it and the way it went into the water, and which just makes me think there's got to be underwater bases out there. And where I was there, I think in 1977, apparently in the day they had like hundreds of gold saucers flying around the air there, and it was absolutely awesome. Sighting by mass people. There used to be a lot of people live there from before. So yeah, I thought I'd share those two experiences. Again, if you've had any experience or know of anyone, let me know in the comments about any of my videos. Always happy to hear about your comments more than anything else. When I look on YouTube, that's one of the things that really makes things special, is the comment section. You don't normally just get a video, you can get to interact and comment and find out more about it and people's opinions, and there's normally a lot of funny things written as well. Things can get a bit silly as well, but you just skip through the stuff, the bullshit stuff, and get to the funny stuff. So yeah, please like and subscribe, and I look forward to doing my next video, especially if it's half as beautiful as this place. I'm just going to pan out now and let you see a bit more before I go. So until next time, goodbye.